You spend 35 years building a life, raising a son alone after your wife dies, working double shifts so he can have everything he needs, sacrificing your own dreams so he can chase his. And then one day, on what's supposed to be one of the happiest days of your life, that son looks you in the eye and tells you he's throwing you away like yesterday's garbage. That's what happened to me on my retirement day, standing in my own living room, holding a cheap supermarket cake that said, "Happy Retirement, George," in blue frosting that was already starting to melt. My name is George Patterson. I'm 67 years old, and until 3 hours ago, I thought I knew my son. I thought I had raised him right, taught him values, shown him what it means to be a good man. I was wrong about all of it. It started as a surprise party. At least that's what Michael told me when he insisted I come straight home from my last day at Morrison Engineering instead of going out for drinks with my colleagues like I'd planned.
"Dad, just come home."
Trust me, you'll want to be there. His voice on the phone had that edge of excitement that made me think maybe he'd actually put some thought into celebrating my retirement. Maybe invited some of my old friends over. Maybe even ordered proper food instead of the usual pizza. I should have known better. When I walked through my front door at 4:30 in the afternoon, Michael and his wife Vanessa were sitting on my couch like they owned the place. Which I suppose they thought they did. The cake sat on my coffee table next to a stack of papers that I would soon learn would change everything. My son wasn't smiling the way people smile at retirement parties. He was wearing his business face, the one he used when he was closing deals at the construction company where he worked. Cold, calculated, ready to negotiate. "Dad." "You're here!" Vanessa stood up first, her voice bright and artificial, like those customer service recordings that pretend to be helpful. She was wearing one of her expensive outfits, probably cost more than I spent on clothes in a year. Designer jeans, silk blouse, heels that clicked on my hardwood floor. Everything about her screamed money, which was ironic considering they never seemed to have any. "Surprise," I said, looking around the empty room. "Where is everyone?" "Everyone." Michael stood up, putting his hand on Vanessa's lower back in that possessive way he had. "It's just us, Dad. We wanted to keep this intimate. Family only, family only." The words should have warmed my heart. Instead, they made something cold settle in my stomach. I'd learned over the past 3 years that when Vanessa said family, what she really meant was the people who can give us what we want. Well, "This is nice," I lied, setting down my box of personal items from my office. 35 years at Morrison Engineering condensed into one cardboard box. My nameplate, some photos, a coffee mug that said "World's Best Dad" that Michael had given me when he was 10. Back when he still looked at me like I was his hero instead of his ATM. "Did you get food or should I order something?" "Actually, Dad, we need to talk first." Michael gestured to my recliner, my chair, the one I'd sat in every evening for 20 years. "Have a seat." The way he said it made it sound like he was inviting me to sit in my own home, like he was the host and I was the guest. I should have walked out right then. I should have told him to get the hell out of my house and come back when he remembered how to show some respect. But I was tired from my last day of work, emotional from saying goodbye to colleagues I'd known for decades, and stupid enough to still believe my son had some good left in him. I sat down. Vanessa perched on the arm of the couch, crossed her legs, and gave me that smile. The one that never reached her eyes. The one that made me feel like a mouse being studied by a very patient cat. "George, first of all, congratulations on your retirement. 35 years is quite an achievement." "Thank you." I waited. There was more coming. There was always more coming with Vanessa. "We know you must be thinking about your future now," she continued, her voice smooth as honey and twice as sticky. "What you're going to do with all this free time, where you're going to live, how you're going to manage on a fixed income. Where I was going to live? I owned this house. I'd paid off the mortgage 2 years ago after 30 years of payments. This was my home. Why was she talking about where I was going to live?" Michael leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and I saw something in his face that I'd never seen before. Or maybe I had seen it and just refused to believe it. Greed. Pure, undiluted greed. "Dad, Vanessa and I have been talking. We're at a point in our lives where we need more space. We're planning to start a family soon, and our current rental just isn't going to cut it." "That's nice," I said carefully. "There are some good neighborhoods on the east side that aren't too expensive. I could help you look if you want." "Actually," Vanessa said, and that cold thing in my stomach turned to ice. We were thinking this house would be perfect for us. The room went quiet. So quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, could hear a car passing on the street outside, could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. This house. It makes perfect sense when you think about it, Michael said, speaking faster now like he was trying to get all the words out before I could interrupt. You're retired now. You don't need all this space. 4 bedrooms is way too much for one person. And Dad, be honest, can you really afford to maintain this place on your pension? The property taxes alone are killing you, right? Plus utilities, repairs, yard maintenance. It's too much for someone your age, someone my age. I was 67, not 97. I could still mow my own lawn, fix my own leaky faucets, shovel my own driveway in winter. But apparently to my son, I was already 1 foot in the grave. So what exactly are you suggesting? I asked, even though I was starting to understand. Starting to see the shape of the trap they'd laid, Vanessa reached for the stack of papers on the coffee table. We've done all the research for you, George. We found this lovely retirement community called Sunset Valley. It's about 30 miles from here, very well maintained, lots of activities and social opportunities. And the best part is, you'd have no responsibilities, no yard work, no repairs, no property taxes. Everything is taken care of. You could just relax and enjoy your golden years. She said golden years like she was describing a vacation, not a prison sentence. I'd visited retirement communities before when my friend Frank's mother had to move into one. They were fine if you didn't have a choice, but they weren't homes. They were warehouses for old people, places where families put their inconvenient elderly relatives and visited twice a year on major holidays. You want me to move into a retirement home? I said it flat, emotionless, trying to process what was happening. A retirement community, Michael corrected. It's not a home, Dad. It's independent living. You'd have your own apartment, your own space. I already have my own space. It's called my house. The house I've lived in for 30 years. The house where I raised you after your mother died. The house I just finished paying off. Michael and Vanessa exchanged a look. They'd practiced this. They'd rehearsed their parts and anticipated my objections. We know this house has sentimental value, Vanessa said in that condescending tone that made me want to throw something. But George, you have to be practical. You're going to need money for your retirement. Medical expenses, living costs, entertainment. Your pension isn't going to cover everything. My pension is fine. I also have savings and my 401k. I'll be comfortable, but you could be more than comfortable, Michael said. Dad, if you deed this house to us, we can take care of all your expenses at Sunset Valley. Room and board, activities, everything. You wouldn't have to worry about money at all. We'd handle it. And there it was, the real plan. They didn't just want me to move out. They wanted me to sign over my house, my home, the only thing of real value I owned. And in return, they'd stick me in some retirement community and control every aspect of my life through their generosity. Let me get this straight, I said slowly. You want me to give you my house, move into this Sunset Valley place, and trust you to pay for everything? Trust you to take care of me? We're family, Dad, Michael said, and the way he said family made me want to punch him. Of course you can trust us. Trust them. The son who hadn't called me just to talk in over 2 years. The son who only contacted me when he needed something. The daughter-in-law who looked at me like I was a walking wallet. I was supposed to trust them with my entire future. I thought about all the money I'd given them over the past 3 years. It started small, like it always does. Dad, the car needs new tires. Can you help us out? $300. Dad, Vanessa's laptop died and she needs it for work. $800. Dad, we're a little short on rent this month. $1,200, then it got bigger. Dad, I need a loan for a down payment on a better car. $5,000 with a promise to pay me back that never materialized. Dad, Vanessa's student loans are killing us. $10,000. Dad, we're trying to pay off credit card debt. $15,000. I'd kept track at first, written it all down in a ledger like the engineer I was. But somewhere around month 18, I'd stopped counting because the numbers were making me sick. I'd pulled money from my savings, from my 401k, from the small inheritance my father had left me. I'd told myself I was helping my son, being a good father, making sure he had opportunities I never had. But I'd never seen a penny back. Never even gotten a thank you that sounded genuine. Just more requests, more emergencies, more reasons why they needed my money right now. And now they wanted my house. I need to think about this, I said, standing up from my chair. My legs felt shaky, like the ground beneath me had shifted. This is a big decision. I can't just agree to something like this on the spot. Vanessa's smile tightened. Of course, George. We understand, but we do need an answer fairly soon. We've already put a deposit down on Sunset Valley to hold a spot for you. It's a very popular community, and spaces don't stay available long. They'd already put down a deposit. They'd already decided my future without asking me. They were so confident I'd agree that they'd spent money, probably my money, securing my prison cell before even having this conversation. How much was the deposit? I asked. $5,000, Michael said. But don't worry about it, Dad. Consider it our investment in your future. $5,000. I wondered where they'd gotten that money. I had a sinking feeling I knew the answer. 3 months ago, Michael had called me in a panic. His company was going through some financial difficulties, and he might lose his job if he couldn't cover some expenses. He needed $10,000 immediately. I'd transferred it the same day because that's what fathers do. They help their sons. Except now I was starting to wonder if his company had ever been in trouble, or if that had just been another lie to extract money from the old man who was too blind and too stupid to see he was being played. When do you need my answer? I asked. Well, Vanessa said, standing and smoothing her designer jeans, we need to give notice on our rental by the end of the week. So ideally, we'd like to have everything settled by Friday. That gives you 3 days to think it over. 3 days to decide whether to give up my home, my independence, and my dignity. How generous of them. I'll let you know, I said, moving toward the door in a clear signal that this conversation was over. Thanks for the cake. Michael looked like he wanted to say something else, but Vanessa touched his arm and shook her head slightly. They'd pushed enough for one day. Time to let the old man stew in it, let him convince himself this was actually a good idea. We love you, Dad, Michael said as they headed toward the door. The words sounded hollow, practiced, meaningless. When was the last time he'd said that without wanting something? After they left, I stood in my living room for a long time, just looking around. This house had been everything to me for 30 years. Linda and I had bought it when she was pregnant with Michael, back when 4 bedrooms seemed excessive for our small family, but we'd been planning for more kids. Then Linda got sick when Michael was only 3 years old. Breast cancer, aggressive. She fought for 2 years before it took her. I'd raised Michael alone in this house. Taught him to ride a bike in that driveway, helped him with homework at that kitchen table. Celebrated every birthday, every achievement, every milestone within these walls. This wasn't just a house. It was a museum of my entire adult life, of my marriage, of my son's childhood, of everything that mattered to me, and they wanted me to just hand it over like it meant nothing. I walked to the mantel above the fireplace where I kept photos. There was Linda on our wedding day, her smile so bright it seemed to light up the frame. There was 3-year-old Michael sitting on my shoulders at the zoo. There was Michael's high school graduation, me standing next to him in my only good suit, both of us grinning. There was Michael and Vanessa's wedding 4 years ago, me standing awkwardly to the side while Vanessa's large family dominated the photos. I picked up Linda's picture and stared at her face. What should I do? I asked her, like I'd done 1,000 times since she died. Did I raise him wrong? Is this my fault? She smiled back at me from across the years, forever young, forever healthy, forever the woman I'd loved more than life itself. If she were here, she'd know what to do. She'd always been better with people than me, better at reading situations, better at knowing when someone was being genuine and when they were full of shit. But she wasn't here. I was alone. And I was so tired of being alone. My phone rang. Frank, my oldest friend, retired police officer, the only person besides Linda who'd ever really understood me. We'd met 40 years ago when we'd both been young men starting families full of hope and energy. We'd supported each other through everything. Linda's death, Frank's divorce, career ups and downs, aging parents, all of it. George, happy retirement, you old bastard. Why aren't you out celebrating? I was expecting a call inviting me to Murphy's Bar for overpriced whiskey and questionable decisions. Despite everything, I smiled. Frank had that effect on people. Long story. You free to come over? For you, always. Give me 30 minutes. Frank arrived with a bottle of decent bourbon and took one look at my face before pouring us both generous glasses. All right, talk. What happened? I told him everything. The surprise that wasn't a surprise, the retirement community, the house, the 3-day deadline, As I talked, Frank's expression grew darker and darker. "Let me get this straight," he said when I finished. "Your son and his wife want you to deed them your house, move into some facility, and trust them to manage your money and pay for everything. That's the basic idea. And how much money have you given them over the past few years?" I'd been avoiding that calculation, but Frank was looking at me with those cop eyes that had interrogated hundreds of suspects and always knew when someone was lying. "A lot. How much is a lot, George?" I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. I went through my transaction history for the past 3 years, adding up every transfer to Michael, every check I'd written, every direct deposit into their account. The number made me feel sick. "Jesus Christ," Frank whispered when I showed him the total. "George, that's over $120,000. Seeing it spelled out like that, hearing it said out loud, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. $123,470 to be exact. That was my father's inheritance, gone. That was a huge chunk of my 401k, gone. That was years of careful saving, gone. They needed help," I said weakly. "Michael's my son. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to let him be a fucking adult." Frank's voice rose and I saw the anger in his eyes. Not anger at me, but anger for me. "George, I love you like a brother, but you've been played. This is textbook elder financial abuse. I've seen it 100 times in my career. Adult children draining their parents dry, and the parents are too blind or too guilty to see it. He's not a criminal, Frank. He's just struggling. He's 35 years old with a good job. His wife works as a realtor. They should be fine. But they're not fine because they're living beyond their means and using you as their personal bank. And now they want your house? George, wake up! This is a con. I wanted to argue, wanted to defend Michael, wanted to believe my son was better than this. But the evidence was right there in black and white on my phone screen. $123,000 in 3 years, and not a penny paid back. Not even an attempt to pay back. What do I do? I asked. Frank leaned back in his chair, sipping his bourbon. First, you tell them no. Absolutely not. This house is yours. You keep it. End of discussion. Second, you stop giving them money. Complete financial cutoff. And third, you protect yourself legally. Change your will, set up a trust, make sure that if something happens to you, they can't swoop in and take everything. But they're my family. George, family doesn't do this to each other. Family doesn't manipulate and exploit and discard. Whatever they are, they stopped being your family the moment they decided you were worth more to them as a paycheck than as a father. His words hurt because they were true. I thought about the past 3 years, really thought about them. When was the last time Michael had called just to see how I was doing? When was the last time he'd invited me over for dinner, not to ask for money, but just to spend time together? When was the last time he'd remembered my birthday without a reminder? I couldn't remember. Every interaction had been transactional. Every visit had ended with a request. Every phone call had been a prelude to asking for money. I'd been so desperate to stay connected to my son, so afraid of being alone, that I'd let myself become nothing more than an ATM with feelings. I feel like an idiot, I said quietly. You're not an idiot. You're a father who loves his son. But George, sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people take advantage of love, weaponize it, use it to manipulate, and that's what's happening here. We sat in silence for a while, drinking bourbon and thinking. Finally, Frank said, "You want my advice? Sleep on it tonight. But tomorrow, you call a lawyer. Get your affairs in order. And then you tell Michael and his wife to go to hell." After Frank left, I sat alone in my living room with the melting retirement cake and the stack of papers about Sunset Valley. I picked up the brochure and read through it. The place looked nice in the photos. Manicured lawns, smiling elderly residents, activities ranging from bingo to water aerobics. But I noticed something. In every photo, the residents looked lost. They wore smiles that didn't reach their eyes. They participated in activities with the enthusiasm of prisoners on work detail. This was where Michael and Vanessa wanted me to spend the rest of my life. Not because it was best for me, but because it was convenient for them. I thought about my retirement plans. I'd been looking forward to traveling, maybe taking that trip to Ireland I'd always dreamed about. Linda's family had come from County Cork, and she'd always wanted to visit. We'd planned to go for our 25th anniversary, but she'd died 6 months before. I'd kept that dream alive, thinking maybe Michael and I could go together someday, trace his mother's roots, connect with that part of his heritage. But Michael had never shown any interest. And with $123,000 gone, that trip was now impossible anyway. I walked to my bedroom and looked at the queen-size bed I'd slept in, alone, for 32 years. Linda's side of the closet still had some of her clothes in it. I'd never been able to throw them away. Sometimes, when I was feeling particularly lonely, I'd press my face into one of her sweaters and breathe in, hoping to catch some lingering trace of her perfume. It never worked. The scent was long gone. But I tried anyway. "I miss you," I whispered into the empty room. "I miss you so much, and I'm so tired, and I don't know what to do." But I did know what to do. Frank was right. I had to protect myself. I had to stop letting my love for Michael blind me to what he'd become. I had to accept that the sweet boy who'd once made me Father's Day cards out of construction paper and glitter was gone, replaced by a man I barely recognized. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about 3 days from now, about the decision I'd have to make. Part of me wanted to just agree, to sign over the house and move to Sunset Valley and let Michael and Vanessa handle everything. It would be easier. No more lawn to mow, no more repairs to make, no more responsibilities. But it would also mean surrendering my independence, my freedom, my dignity. It would mean admitting I was too old and too useless to take care of myself. It would mean spending whatever years I had left in a place I didn't choose, surrounded by strangers, visiting my own home, my home that wouldn't be mine anymore, like a guest. No. Frank was right. I had to say no. And more than that, I had to mean it. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Maybe it was Frank's words echoing in my head. Maybe it was finally seeing the situation for what it really was. Or maybe it was just that I'd reached my breaking point and something inside me had snapped, but in a good way. I made myself a proper breakfast for the first time in weeks. Scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, coffee. As I ate, I made a list of everything I needed to do. First item, call a lawyer. I found one through a referral from Frank. Her name was Margaret Chen, and she specialized in elder law and estate planning. Her receptionist got me an appointment for that afternoon, which told me that either business was slow or Frank had called ahead and asked for a favor. Knowing Frank, probably the latter. Margaret Chen was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a handshake that could crush rocks. She listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me with something that might have been sympathy or might have been pity. "Mr. Patterson, I'm going to be very direct with you. What your son and daughter-in-law are attempting is financial elder abuse. It's more common than people think, and it's exactly why I specialized in this area of law. Adult children see their aging parents as retirement plans, inheritances they can access early, resources to be exploited. Hearing it stated so baldly made my stomach turn. He's my son. I raised him better than this. I'm sure you did, but people change. Especially when they're under the influence of someone like your daughter-in-law. From what you've described, she's the driving force here. Your son is complicit, yes, but she's the architect." I thought about Vanessa, about the way she'd orchestrated yesterday's conversation, the way she'd answered questions before Michael could, the way she'd touched his arm to silence him when he was about to say something off script. Margaret was right. Vanessa was running the show. "What do I do?" I asked. "Several things. First, we draft a new will that makes your intentions absolutely clear. Second, we set up a revocable living trust to protect your assets. Third, we establish a durable power of attorney naming someone you trust, not your son, to make decisions if you become incapacitated. Fourth, we document everything that's happened, every dollar you've given them, every manipulation, every lie. And fifth, you tell them no, and you prepare for the backlash." Backlash? Mr. Patterson, people like this don't take no for an answer easily. When you cut off their access to your money, they'll escalate. They'll try guilt, they'll try threats, they might even try legal action. We need to be prepared for all of it. We spent the next 3 hours going through my finances, my assets, my entire situation. Margaret was thorough and efficient. By the time I left her office, I had a plan. A real plan, not just vague intentions. I also had homework. She wanted me to go through my bank statements for the past 5 years and document every single transaction involving Michael and Vanessa. Every transfer, every check, every payment. She wanted dates, amounts, and whatever explanation I'd been given at the time. That night, I spread out 5 years of bank statements on my dining room table and got to work. It was worse than I'd thought. The $123,000 had been for the past 3 years. When I went back further, I found another $37,000 in the first 2 years of Michael's marriage to Vanessa, $160,000. That was the price I'd paid for the privilege of being disrespected and discarded. I made a spreadsheet, old engineering habits die hard, with columns for date, amount, stated reason, and actual outcome. The pattern was obvious once I laid it out. Each request had been presented as an emergency, a one-time thing, a temporary setback. But they kept coming with clockwork regularity. Dad, the furnace died. $4,000. I'd later learned they just wanted to upgrade to a newer model. Dad, Vanessa's car broke down. $6,000. She'd totaled it driving drunk, something they'd conveniently forgotten to mention. Dad, we need help with medical bills. $8,000. For what medical issue, I never found out. The lies were documented right there in black and white. I'd been too trusting, too desperate to help. Too afraid of losing my only family to ask the hard questions or demand proof or say no. My phone rang. Michael. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Hey, Dad. Just checking in. Have you had a chance to think about our proposal? Our proposal? Like they were offering me a business opportunity instead of trying to steal my house. I'm still thinking about it, I said, keeping my voice neutral. That's great. Listen, Vanessa and I were talking, and we thought maybe we could sweeten the deal a bit. What if we agreed to visit you at Sunset Valley at least once a month? And you could come visit us at the house, your old house, anytime you want. It would be like you never left. Except it wouldn't be my house anymore. I'd be a guest in my own home, dependent on their generosity for visits. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost insulting. Michael, can I ask you something? Of course, Dad, anything. When was the last time you called me just to talk? Not to ask for money, not to tell me about some emergency, just to see how I was doing. The silence on the other end of the line stretched out for so long I thought we'd been disconnected. Finally, Dad, I don't understand what you're asking. It's a simple question. When did you last call your father because you wanted to talk to him, not because you needed something from him? That's not fair. We talk all the time. No, Michael. You call when you need money. There's a difference. Dad, where is this coming from? Are you feeling okay? You're not usually this confrontational. Maybe we should schedule a doctor's appointment for you, get you checked out. And there it was, the pivot to questioning my mental state. Margaret had warned me this would happen. When financial abusers meet resistance, they often try to paint their victims as confused or incompetent. It gives them moral cover for their actions and sets up a potential legal strategy later. I'm fine, Michael. In fact, I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. I'll have my answer for you tomorrow. Tomorrow? Dad, we really need to know by Friday. You'll know tomorrow. Goodbye, Michael. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear or uncertainty. From anger. From decades of suppressed frustration finally finding its voice. How dare he question my mental state? How dare he act concerned about my well-being when all he wanted was my house? That evening, Frank came over with Chinese takeout and more bourbon. I showed him my spreadsheet, walked him through every entry. His face got darker with each line. George, this is even worse than I thought. $160,000? That's grand theft disguised as family help. Can I get it back? Legally? Frank shook his head. Probably not. Gifts are gifts, even if they were obtained through manipulation. But what you can do is make damn sure they don't get another penny, and you can make sure everyone knows what they did. I don't want revenge, Frank. I just want it to stop. Sometimes making it stop requires showing them there are consequences. Right now they think you're a pushover. They think they can do whatever they want, and you'll just take it because you're afraid of losing them. You need to show them they're wrong. He was right. I'd been operating from fear for so long. Fear of being alone. Fear of losing my only child. Fear of aging without family support. But what did I really have to lose? A relationship that only existed when they needed money. A son who couldn't remember the last time he called just to talk. A daughter-in-law who looked at me like a resource to be exploited. I'd already lost what mattered. The real Michael, the boy I'd raised, was long gone if he'd ever truly existed at all. What remained was just someone who shared my DNA and my last name. The next morning I called Michael. I've made my decision. Come to the house at 7 tonight. Both of you. Dad, that's great. I knew you'd see reason. Should we bring anything? Champagne maybe to celebrate? Just bring yourselves. 7 o'clock. Don't be late. I spent the day preparing. Margaret had helped me draft a letter explaining my decision and outlining my new boundaries. I printed out my spreadsheet documenting every dollar I'd given them. I pulled out my new will and trust documents. I was going into battle and I was armed with the truth. At exactly 7 o'clock, Michael and Vanessa arrived. They were both dressed nicely, Vanessa in a dress that probably cost more than my monthly utilities, Michael in slacks and a button-down shirt. They looked like they were going to a celebration, not an execution. "Dad!" Michael hugged me, something he hadn't done in years. The physical contact felt strange, foreign, like being hugged by a stranger. "We're so excited." Vanessa even made a timeline for the transition. "We figured you could move to Sunset Valley next month, which gives us time to do some renovations here before we move in." They'd already planned renovations. They were so confident I'd agree that they'd already started deciding how to change my house to suit their tastes. "Sit down," I said. "Both of you." They sat on the couch, holding hands, smiling like lottery winners. I remained standing, documents in hand. "I've thought very carefully about your proposal," I began. "I've consulted with my lawyer, my financial advisor, and my closest friends, and my answer is no." The smiles froze on their faces. "What?" Vanessa said. "No, I'm not giving you my house. I'm not moving to Sunset Valley. I'm staying right here, in the home I worked 30 years to pay for, and I'm living my retirement exactly as I choose." Michael stood up. "Dad, I don't think you've really thought this through." "You're being emotional. Let's talk about this rationally." "I have thought it through. Very rationally. In fact, I've thought about a lot of things." I held up the spreadsheet. "For instance, I've thought about the $160,000 I've given you over the past 5 years. That's documented right here. Every transfer, every check, every payment, along with every lie you told me about why you needed it." Vanessa's face went pale. Michael's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. "I've also thought about how you've treated me. Not as a father, not as a person, but as a bank account. When was the last time either of you invited me over for dinner? When was the last time you remembered my birthday without me having to remind you? When was the last time you called me just because you wanted to hear my voice?" "Dad, that's not fair," Michael started. "What's not fair," I interrupted, my voice rising, "is you trying to take my home. What's not fair is you lying to me for 5 years. What's not fair is you treating me like I'm already dead, like I'm just an inheritance waiting to be collected." Vanessa stood up, her face twisted with anger. The mask she usually wore, the sweet, concerned daughter-in-law, had completely fallen away. What I saw underneath was ugly and mean and exactly what I'd suspected all along. "You selfish old man. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Everything you've done for me?" I actually laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even myself. "Name one thing. One single thing you've done for me that didn't involve spending my money." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Searched for an answer that didn't exist. "We spend time with you. We include you in our lives. You visit for 10 minutes at a time to ask for money. That's not spending time with me, Vanessa. That's conducting business transactions." Michael stepped between us, his face flushed. "Dad, I think you need to calm down. You're clearly upset and not thinking straight. Maybe we should schedule that doctor's appointment after all. Get you evaluated." There it was again. The suggestion that I was mentally incompetent. Margaret had warned me this was coming and she'd prepared me for it. "I've already been evaluated, Michael. Last week, in fact. My lawyer insisted on it to protect me from exactly this kind of manipulation. I have a notarized letter from Dr. Stevens confirming that I am of completely sound mind and fully capable of managing my own affairs." I pulled out the letter and held it up. "Want to read it?" His face went even redder. Vanessa grabbed his arm, her fingernails digging into his sleeve. "This is ridiculous, Mike. We don't have to stand here and be insulted." "Let's go." "Wait," I said. "I'm not done. I need you both to understand something. As of today, the bank is closed. No more loans, no more gifts, no more emergencies that I fund. You're both adults with jobs. It's time you learn to live within your means." "You can't do this," Vanessa hissed. "We have obligations. We have bills. We've made commitments based on your support. Then you shouldn't have made those commitments. Your poor financial planning is not my emergency. Not anymore." Michael's voice cracked. "Dad, please, you don't understand. We're in real trouble here. We owe people money. If you cut us off now, we could lose everything." "Like you were planning to take everything from me?" I shook my head. "No, Michael. I've given you $160,000 over 5 years. That's over twice what most people make in a year. If you're still in financial trouble after that kind of help, then money isn't your problem. Your choices are your problem. We're family, Michael shouted, and I saw tears in his eyes. Real or manufactured, I couldn't tell anymore. Family helps each other. You're right. Family does help each other. Family also respects each other, values each other, treats each other with dignity. You've done none of those things. You've used me, manipulated me, and tried to steal my home. That's not family, Michael. That's exploitation. Vanessa pulled out her phone. Fine, you want to play hardball, old man? We'll play hardball. I'm calling our lawyer. We'll sue you for the money you promised us. We'll have you declared incompetent. We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of father you really are. The kind who abandons his own son when he needs help most. Go ahead, I said calmly, though my heart was racing. Call your lawyer. I'll give you my lawyer's number so they can coordinate. Margaret Chen. She specializes in elder financial abuse, and she's been documenting everything. Every lie, every manipulation, every attempt to coerce me into signing over my house. She's actually looking forward to this. The bluff worked. Vanessa's hand holding the phone wavered. Michael looked like he might throw up. Get out, I said quietly. Get out of my house and don't come back unless you're ready to apologize and build a real relationship based on mutual respect, not financial transactions. You'll regret this, Vanessa spat. When you're old and sick and dying alone, you'll remember this moment. You'll remember choosing pride over family. I'm not choosing pride over family. I'm choosing self-respect over abuse. There's a difference. Now leave. They left, Vanessa stomping in her expensive heels, Michael looking back once with an expression I couldn't read. Hurt? Anger? Regret? I didn't know, and I realized I didn't care. I was done trying to decipher my son's emotions, done trying to find hints of the boy he used to be and the man he'd become. After they were gone, I sat in my recliner and waited for the emotional collapse. The tears, the regret, the second-guessing. But it didn't come. Instead, I felt lighter than I had in years, free, like I'd been carrying a massive weight and had finally set it down. Frank called an hour later. How'd it go? I told them no. They threatened to sue me and have me declared incompetent. They won't. They're bluffing. Guys like that, they're all bark and no bite when someone finally stands up to them. How do you feel? Honestly, I feel good. Really good. That's because you did the right thing, George. I'm proud of you. After we hung up, I looked around my living room. My house, my home, still mine. I walked through each room, really seeing them for the first time in months. The master bedroom where Linda and I had slept for 14 years before she died. Michael's old bedroom, still decorated with posters of bands he'd liked in high school. The guest room I'd always kept ready, hoping Michael and Vanessa would visit more often. The office where I'd paid bills and managed my life for 30 years. This was worth fighting for. Not just the physical structure, but what it represented. My independence, my history, my right to live my own life on my own terms. Over the next few days, Michael called 17 times. I didn't answer. He left voicemails that ranged from angry to pleading to confused. Vanessa sent text messages that were pure venom. I saved everything, forwarded it all to Margaret Chen, and blocked their numbers. Margaret called me with an update. Mr. Patterson, I did some research on your daughter-in-law. She has a history of financial problems. 3 bankruptcies, multiple judgments against her, liens on properties she's owned. Your son might not even know the full extent of her debts. She likely saw him, and by extension you, as a way out of her financial hole. That explained a lot. Michael had been financially stable before meeting Vanessa. He'd had savings, good credit, a decent job. Within 2 years of marrying her, he was constantly broke and hitting me up for money. She'd dragged him down into her mess, and they'd both decided I was the solution. A week after our confrontation, I received a certified letter. They were suing me for $100,000, claiming I'd promised to support them financially and had breached that verbal contract. Margaret had expected this. Let them sue, she said. They have no case. Verbal promises of future gifts aren't legally enforceable, and you have no written agreement. Plus, we have documentation of what you've already given them. If anything, they owe you. The lawsuit was clearly a pressure tactic, one last attempt to scare me into compliance. It didn't work. Margaret filed a response denying all claims and including a counterclaim documenting the $160,000 I'd already given them, labeled as loans to be repaid. 2 weeks later, their lawyer withdrew the lawsuit. Apparently, when faced with actual documentation and the possibility of having to explain their actions under oath, Michael and Vanessa decided discretion was the better part of valor. But the harassment didn't stop. They showed up at my house multiple times. I called the police each time, documented each incident. Frank, using his connections with the department, made sure the reports were taken seriously. After the fourth visit, Margaret helped me file for a restraining order. The hearing was brutal. I had to sit in a courtroom and listen to my son testify that he was worried about my mental health, that I'd become paranoid and hostile, that I was being manipulated by friends and lawyers who wanted to isolate me from my family. Vanessa cried on the stand, painting herself as a devoted daughter-in-law who only wanted to help her elderly father-in-law but was being rejected for trying to provide care. Margaret destroyed them on cross-examination. She presented my psychiatric evaluation showing perfect mental competency. She presented the spreadsheet documenting $160,000 in gifts. She presented the Sunset Valley brochure and the timeline they'd created for taking over my house. She presented text messages and voicemails showing their threats and manipulation. The judge granted the restraining order. Michael and Vanessa were prohibited from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of my home. As we left the courthouse, I saw Vanessa screaming at Michael in the parking lot. Even from a distance, I could hear fragments. "This is your fault. Should have pushed harder. Useless." She'd turned on him now that the money had dried up. I wondered how long their marriage would last without my funds propping it up. Part of me felt sorry for Michael. He'd chosen the wrong partner, let himself be manipulated, destroyed his relationship with his father. But that pity was distant, intellectual. My heart had gone numb where my son was concerned. Over the following months, I began rebuilding my life. I joined a gym and started working out with Frank 3 times a week. I traveled, took that trip to Ireland I'd always dreamed about, walked the streets of Cork where Linda's grandparents had lived, felt connected to her in a way I hadn't in years. I joined a book club at the library and made new friends who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. I also volunteered at a local community center that helped seniors navigate financial and legal issues. I shared my story, anonymously at first, then openly when I realized how common it was. So many elderly people being exploited by their own children. So many families destroyed by greed masquerading as need. One evening, about 6 months after the restraining order, I received an unexpected visitor. I saw the car pull up through my window, and my first instinct was to call the police. But then I recognized it. Not Michael's car, but one belonging to his best friend from high school, Tom. Tom stood on my porch holding a 6-pack of beer, looking uncomfortable. "Mr. Patterson, I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now, but can we talk?" "5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." I almost said no, but curiosity won out. I let him in but didn't offer him a seat. "I'm not here representing Mike," Tom said immediately. "He doesn't even know I'm here. In fact, he'd probably kill me if he knew. But I felt like someone needed to tell you the truth about what's been happening. I'm listening." Tom sat down without invitation, looking exhausted. "Mike and Vanessa separated 3 months ago. She left him when the money dried up, just like you probably figured she would. Took everything that wasn't nailed down, maxed out their credit cards on her way out, and moved to California with some guy she met online." I felt a small stab of something. Not quite satisfaction, but vindication. "And Michael?" "He's a mess, Mr. Patterson. Lost his job 2 months ago because he couldn't focus, stopped showing up on time. Got evicted from their apartment last week. He's been couch surfing, staying with me and other friends, but nobody can put him up permanently. We all have our own families, our own problems. Why are you telling me this?" Tom looked me directly in the eyes. "Because he's too proud and too ashamed to ask for help. Because he knows he destroyed his relationship with you, and he thinks it's permanent. But also because, and I'm going to be real honest here, I think he's finally understanding what he did. Not because he wants your money back. Because he genuinely realizes he lost his father." "Too little, too late," I said. But my voice lacked conviction. "Maybe, probably. But I thought you should know. Mike talks about you sometimes when he's had too much to drink. Talks about things from when he was a kid. Your mom teaching me to ride a bike. Your dad taking me fishing. Your dad sitting up with me all night when I had the flu. He remembers, Mr. Patterson. Somewhere under all the mistakes and the greed and the stupidity, he remembers." After Tom left, I sat with that information. Part of me wanted to rush to Michael's rescue, fix his problems, Give him a place to stay. The old George would have done exactly that. But the new George, the one who'd learned painful lessons about enabling versus helping, knew better. If Michael was really going to change, he had to hit bottom. He had to face the consequences of his choices without a safety net. That was the only way he'd learn, the only way he'd grow into the man he should have been all along. But that didn't mean I had to enjoy watching him suffer. I called Margaret Chen the next day. If Michael contacts me, not through Vanessa, just him, and if he genuinely apologizes, not asking for anything, just apologizing, what would you recommend? That's your decision, Mr. Patterson. But if you do choose to rebuild a relationship, do it slowly. Set firm boundaries. Make sure he understands that things can never go back to the way they were. And document everything, just to protect yourself. 2 weeks later, I received a letter in the mail. Not a text, not an email, an actual handwritten letter. The return address was Tom's house. Inside was 3 pages in Michael's handwriting, slightly shaky, obviously written and rewritten multiple times based on the crossed-out words and corrections. Dear Dad, it began. I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to respond. But I need to say these things, even if you throw this letter away without finishing it. I'm sorry. That's inadequate, but it's where I have to start. I'm sorry for using you. I'm sorry for treating you like a bank account instead of my father. I'm sorry for letting Vanessa manipulate me into hurting you. I'm sorry for trying to take your house. I'm sorry for threatening you and questioning your mental competence. I'm sorry for 5 years of lies and manipulation and taking advantage of your love. But most of all, I'm sorry for forgetting who you are. You're the man who worked double shifts so I could go to summer camp. You're the man who taught me how to fix a car and balance a checkbook and be a decent human being. You're the man who sat with me when Mom died and promised me we'd be okay together. You're the man who came to every single one of my baseball games even when you were exhausted from work. You're the man who believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. And I repaid all of that by trying to steal from you. I can make excuses. I can blame Vanessa, and honestly, she was a bad influence who encouraged my worst instincts. But at the end of the day, I made my own choices. I saw what we were doing to you and I didn't stop it. I told myself it was okay because you were my father and fathers help their sons. But I knew deep down that we were crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed. I've lost everything now, Dad. My marriage, my job, my apartment, my self-respect. And you know what? I deserve to lose it all. This is what happens when you build your life on lies and other people's money. Everything collapses eventually. I'm not asking you to help me. I'm not asking for money or a place to stay or even forgiveness. I'm just asking you to know that I understand now. I understand what I did and I understand what I lost. And I'm working on becoming the man you tried to raise me to be. It's too late for us probably, but maybe it's not too late for me to become a decent person. I'm seeing a therapist. I'm working 2 jobs. Nothing glamorous, just restaurant work and warehouse shifts, but honest work that I earn with my own effort. I'm living within my means, which turns out to be much more modest than I thought it would be. And I'm learning that self-respect doesn't come from what you own or what you can take from others. It comes from knowing you're doing your best and treating people right. I love you, Dad. I don't know if I've said that in years, really said it and meant it. But I love you. I'm sorry I forgot how to show it. I'm sorry I let money corrupt everything good between us. You don't owe me anything. You gave me everything a father should give a son and more. The debt is on my side, and it's one I can never repay. But I wanted you to know that your son, the real one, the one you raised before I lost my way, is still in here somewhere. And I'm trying to find him again. With love and regret, Michael. I read that letter 5 times. Looked for manipulation, for hidden requests, for any sign that this was just another con. But all I found was pain and genuine remorse. It didn't erase what had happened. It didn't magically fix our relationship, but it was a start. A real start. I didn't respond immediately. I thought about it for a week, talked it over with Frank, consulted with Margaret. Finally, I sent a brief reply, also handwritten, also mailed to Tom's address. Michael, I received your letter. Thank you for your honesty. I accept your apology. That doesn't mean I trust you yet or that our relationship can go back to what it was. But it means I'm willing to see if we can build something new, something healthier. If you're serious about changing, prove it through actions, not words. Get your life together. Stay in therapy. Learn to stand on your own feet. And after 6 months, if you're still on this path, call me. We'll have coffee. We'll talk. I still love you. I never stopped loving you. But love isn't enough without respect and trust. Those things will take time to rebuild. Dad, 6 months passed. I heard nothing from Michael, which was good. He was respecting boundaries, giving me space, focusing on his own recovery. Tom updated me occasionally. Michael was doing better, working hard, staying sober, seeing his therapist regularly. He'd moved into a small studio apartment, nothing fancy but his own place. He was learning to live within his means. During those 6 months, I continued building my own new life. I'd become close with several members of my book club, particularly a widow named Dorothy who had a wicked sense of humor and a similar story of being exploited by her adult children. We started having dinner together once a week, just as friends, both of us enjoying companionship without expectations or demands. I also reconnected with some old colleagues from Morrison Engineering. We started a monthly poker night, nothing high stakes, just an excuse to get together and talk and remember when we were younger. It felt good to be around people who valued me for myself, not for what I could provide. On the 6-month anniversary of my letter to Michael, my phone rang. Unknown number, but I had a feeling who it was. I answered, "Dad?" Michael's voice was tentative, nervous. "It's been 6 months. I was wondering if that coffee invitation was still open." "It is." "Where do you want to meet?" "There's a place near my apartment, nothing fancy. It's called Joe's Coffee." "Would that work?" We set a date for the following Saturday. I arrived early, found a table in the back, ordered black coffee. Michael arrived exactly on time, which I took as a good sign. He looked different, thinner, older, but also healthier somehow. There was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Humility, maybe, or hard-won wisdom. "Thanks for coming," he said, sitting down across from me. "I wasn't sure you would. I keep my promises." "I always have." He flinched at that. "Yeah, I know. I'm sorry I forgot that." We talked for 3 hours. Really talked, the way we hadn't talked in years. He told me about his life now, the 2 jobs, the tiny apartment, the therapy sessions where he was unpacking years of poor decisions and toxic relationships. He told me about Vanessa leaving, about hitting rock bottom, about slowly climbing back up through his own effort. "The weirdest thing," he said, "is that I'm happier now than I was when I had money and a nice apartment and all that stuff. I'm broke. I'm working my ass off. I'm living in a place smaller than your garage, but I'm proud of myself for the first time in years. I'm earning everything I have. Nobody can take it from me because it's mine through my own work." I found myself believing him. Not blindly, not naively, but carefully.
"What happened to you, Michael?"
"When did things change?" He was quiet for a long time. "I think it started when I met Vanessa. She was exciting. She came from money. She had this life I thought I wanted, and she made me feel like I deserved more than what I had, that I was settling, that I should want more. At first it was motivating, but somewhere along the way it turned into entitlement. I started believing I was owed things I hadn't earned, and you were there, always ready to help, and it became so easy to just take and take and take. Why didn't you stop?" "Because you never said no. Because every time I asked, you gave, and I told myself that meant it was okay, that you could afford it, that you wanted to help. I didn't let myself think about what it was costing you, because then I'd have to admit what I was doing was wrong. So what changed?" "Losing everything. Having Vanessa leave and realizing our entire relationship had been built on money. Having you cut me off and understanding that I'd destroyed the one relationship that actually mattered. Sitting in Tom's guest room with nothing, absolutely nothing, and having to face who I'd become." He looked me directly in the eyes. "I don't want to be that person anymore, Dad. I want to be someone you can be proud of again." "I never stopped being proud of you," I said, surprising myself. I was disappointed, hurt, angry. But somewhere underneath all that, I was still proud that you were my son. I just couldn't see past all the pain to feel it. We left that coffee shop with an agreement. We'd meet every 2 weeks just for coffee, just to talk. No money would change hands. No favors would be asked. We'd rebuild our relationship slowly, carefully, brick by brick. And maybe someday we'd have something real again. Over the next year, Michael and I met every 2 weeks without fail. Rain, shine, holidays, it didn't matter. We showed up for each other. Sometimes the conversations were deep and meaningful. Sometimes we just talked about sports or movies or nothing in particular. But we were building something new, something healthier than what we'd had before. I watched Michael transform. Not overnight, not dramatically, but gradually. He got promoted at the restaurant, then moved to a better job at a local company doing project management. Nothing glamorous, but solid work with room to grow. He moved into a better apartment, still modest but clean and well-maintained. He started dating someone new, a teacher named Rachel, who had her own career and her own life and didn't need him to be anything other than himself. When he finally introduced me to Rachel, I understood immediately why this relationship was different. She was kind, grounded, realistic. She knew about his past mistakes. He'd been honest with her from the beginning, and she'd chosen to see who he was now, not who he'd been. They split checks at restaurants. They both worked and contributed equally to their life together. There was respect between them, partnership, equality. She reminds me of your mother, I told Michael after that first meeting. Not in looks, but in character. Linda would have liked her. His eyes got misty. That means everything to me, Dad. Everything. A year and a half after our first coffee meeting, Michael called me with a question that made my heart stop.
Dad, Rachel and I are getting married.
Small ceremony, just close friends and family. Would you come? Would you walk her down the aisle with her father? She asked specifically if you'd be willing to do that. I sat down, suddenly unable to stand. You want me at your wedding? Of course I do. You're my father. I can't imagine getting married without you there. And Dad, I know I ruined that with Vanessa. I know I hurt you by excluding you. If you're not ready, if it's too painful, I understand. But I'm asking because I want you there, not because I need anything from you, just your presence. That's all. I'll be there, I said, my voice rough with emotion. I wouldn't miss it for the world. The wedding was everything the first one wasn't. It was small, intimate, filled with people who genuinely loved Michael and Rachel. It was held in a park, simple and beautiful, with folding chairs and wildflowers and laughter. When Rachel's father and I walked her down the aisle together, I felt Linda's presence so strongly, I almost looked around to see if she was there. Michael's vows made me cry. He talked about second chances, about learning to be worthy of love, about becoming the man he wanted to be. He looked at me when he said, I've learned that real strength isn't about what you can take from others, but about what you can build with your own hands and share with an open heart. At the reception, which was held in the community center and catered by the restaurant where Michael worked, he stood up to give a toast. I need to say something to my father. Dad, stand up. I stood, uncomfortable with the attention, but Michael's face was so earnest I couldn't refuse. 7 years ago, I was the worst son imaginable. I used you. I manipulated you. I tried to steal from you. I treated your love like a resource to be exploited and your generosity like an unlimited credit card. You had every right to cut me out of your life completely and never speak to me again. The room had gone silent. Rachel was holding his hand, tears streaming down her face. But you didn't do that. You set boundaries, yes. You protected yourself, absolutely. But you also left the door open just a crack for me to prove I could change. And when I finally walked through that door, you gave me the greatest gift a father can give a son, the chance to earn back your trust and respect. His voice broke. I can never repay you for the money I took. $160,000 is a debt I'll never be able to clear. But I can spend the rest of my life being the son you deserved all along. I can honor you by being a good man, a good husband, and someday a good father. That's my promise to you, Dad. That's my vow. I couldn't speak. I could only nod as tears ran down my face. Michael crossed the room and hugged me, really hugged me, for the first time in what felt like forever. I love you, Dad. Thank you for not giving up on me. I love you too, son. Always have. Always will. The rest of that evening was joyful in a way I hadn't experienced in years. I danced with Rachel, talked with her parents, met Michael's friends who all seemed to genuinely care about him. This was what family was supposed to feel like. Not obligation, not transaction, but genuine connection and love. Frank showed up late in the evening, as I'd invited him. He pulled me aside with a grin. Look at you, George, happy. When was the last time I saw you really happy? Before Linda died, probably. It's been a long time. You did good, friend. You stood your ground, you protected yourself, but you didn't close the door completely. That took wisdom I'm not sure I would have had. I had good help. You, Margaret, Dorothy. I couldn't have done it without all of you. As the evening wound down, Rachel's father approached me. George, I wanted to thank you. Michael told us everything, held nothing back. What you did, cutting him off, forcing him to face consequences, that saved his life. If you'd kept enabling him, he'd be a completely different person right now. Probably divorced again, possibly worse. You loved him enough to let him fail, and that's the hardest thing a parent can do. His words stayed with me as I drove home that night. I'd doubted myself so many times over the past 2 years, wondered if I'd been too harsh, too unforgiving, too rigid. But maybe I'd done exactly what Michael needed. Maybe sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in someone's self-destruction. 6 months after the wedding, Michael and Rachel invited me over for Sunday dinner. It had become a tradition. Once a month, I'd come to their apartment and Rachel would cook and we'd eat together and talk. No ulterior motives, no hidden agendas, just family spending time together. That particular evening, they had news. Rachel was pregnant. I was going to be a grandfather. We want to name him Robert if it's a boy. Michael said, after Grandpa. And if it's a girl, Linda after Mom. If that's okay with you. More than okay, I managed to say through tears.
Your mother would be so happy.
So proud of who you've become. I hope so. I think about her a lot, actually. About what she'd think of the choices I made. The person I became. I think she'd be disappointed in who I was, but I hope she'd be proud of who I'm trying to be now. She would be, son. She absolutely would be. 8 months later, I held my grandson Robert for the first time. He had Linda's eyes, or maybe that was just my imagination. But holding him, I felt a sense of completion, of cycles coming full circle. This baby represented hope, redemption, second chances. He represented everything good that could come from learning hard lessons and choosing to be better. Michael was a devoted father from day one. I watched him change diapers, do middle-of-the-night feedings, rock little Robert to sleep with infinite patience. He was present, engaged, loving. He was the father I'd raised him to be, before he'd lost his way. Dad, he said one evening when I was visiting, I need to tell you something. Rachel and I have been saving money. Not a lot, but we're putting aside a little every month. It's going to take years, probably decades, but we're going to pay you back.
Every dollar we took from you, we're going to return. Michael, you don't have to.
Yes, I do. Not because you're asking for it, but because I need to do it. For me, to prove that I understand the value of what you gave me and the wrongness of how I treated it. We've calculated that if we pay $500 a month, we can clear the debt in about 27 years. I'll be 62. You'll be 94. If I make it to 94, you will. You're too stubborn to die young. He smiled. But seriously, Dad, even if you don't live to see it fully repaid, I need to do this. Rachel agrees. We want Robert to grow up understanding that when you make mistakes, you fix them. You don't just apologize and move on. You make amends. I started to argue, then stopped. This wasn't about me or the money. This was about Michael's healing, about him repairing his own sense of integrity. Who was I to take that away from him? Okay, I said. If that's what you need to do, I accept. The first payment arrived the next month. $500 transferred into my account with a note. Payment 1 of $320. Thank you for everything. Love, Michael and Rachel. I didn't need the money. My pension and retirement savings were more than adequate for my needs, especially now that I wasn't supporting 2 other adults. But I let them make the payments because I understood what it meant to Michael. Every month, that transfer was a reminder of his commitment to being better, to honoring his debts, to living with integrity. 5 years passed. Robert started kindergarten, a bright, curious child who called me Grandpa and climbed into my lap to hear stories about his grandmother Linda. Michael had been promoted twice and was now managing projects for a mid-size construction firm. Rachel had tenure at her school. They'd bought a small house, modest but theirs, with a mortgage they could actually afford, and every month $500 appeared in my account. 60 payments down, 260 to go. I turned 72 that year and threw myself a party, something I'd never done before. Frank was there, of course, and Dorothy, and my book club friends, and my old colleagues from Morrison Engineering. Michael, Rachel, and Robert came early to help set up. Watching my son arrange chairs and hang decorations, I felt overwhelming gratitude for second chances. During the party, Tom pulled me aside. Mr. Patterson, I've wanted to tell you this for years. Thank you for not giving up on Mike. After everything that happened, you could have cut him off permanently. A lot of parents would have. But you left that door open, and it saved him. He's my best friend, and I got to watch him come back from the edge. That's because of you. It's because of him, I corrected. I just refused to enable his worst instincts. He did the hard work of changing. Maybe. But you gave him the space to do that work. That matters. As the party wound down and guests began leaving, Michael helped me clean up. Rachel had taken Robert home for bedtime, but Michael had stayed behind. We worked in comfortable silence for a while, stacking chairs and collecting paper plates. "Dad," he said finally, "I know I say this a lot, but I need you to really hear it. Thank you. Thank you for loving me enough to let me fail. Thank you for being strong when I was weak. Thank you for showing me what real integrity looks like. And thank you for giving me another chance when I finally pulled my head out of my ass." I laughed at his language, something the old Michael never would have said around me. This easy honesty, this real relationship was worth every painful moment of the past 7 years. You're welcome, son. But thank you, too, for doing the work, for becoming someone your mother would be proud of, for giving me a grandson, for rebuilding our relationship into something real and healthy. That took courage. We finished cleaning in silence, then stood in my living room, the same room where 7 years ago he'd tried to steal my house. So much had changed. Everything had changed. I should get home, Michael said. Rachel will wonder what happened to me. Go, kiss your wife and son for me. At the door, he turned back. Dad, I love you. Not because of what you can do for me or what you can give me, just because you're my father and you're a good man and I'm lucky to be your son. I love you too, Michael. After he left, I sat in my recliner, the same chair I'd sat in during that terrible retirement day confrontation, and looked around my home. Still mine, still filled with memories, but now also filled with hope and healing and proof that people really can change if they want to badly enough. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Payment 61 cents. 2:59 to go. Good night, Dad. I smiled and texted back. Received. Good night, son. Then I looked at Linda's photo on the mantel. We did it, I told her. Our boy found his way back. It took a while and the path was rough, but he made it. You'd be so proud of him. I know I am. The house was quiet, but it wasn't empty. It was full of the things that mattered. Memories, love, hope, and the knowledge that I'd done the right thing. I hadn't enabled or rescued or fixed. I'd loved enough to let go, and in doing so, I'd gotten my son back. Not the son I'd lost, but someone better. Someone who'd learned hard lessons and emerged stronger. Someone who understood that love wasn't about money or obligations, but about showing up, being present, and choosing each other every day. That was worth more than $160,000. That was worth everything.